Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we have lined up for you. A historic day for Alberta as Premier Smith and Prime Minister Carney sign an MOU for a bitumen pipeline that Alberta says will more than double oil exports to Asian markets. Plus, authorities in Washington, D.C. continue to investigate the motive for Wednesday's brazen daytime shooting of 2 U.S. National Guard soldiers. And a quick-thinking viewer captures video just seconds after a train derails outside Champion, Alberta today.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's a historic day for Alberta and what appears to be a big win for Premier Danielle Smith and her United Conservative government. As expected, Smith and Prime Minister Mark Carney signed a memorandum of understanding Thursday in Calgary that Alberta says will more than double oil exports to Asian markets, address investment uncertainty, and reduce emissions. The deal includes a declaration by the federal government that an Indigenous co-owned Alberta bitumen pipeline to Asian markets is a project of national interest. The Prime Minister spoke to reporters about the importance of that pipeline.
At the core of the agreement, of course, is a priority to have a pipeline to Asia. That's going to make Canada stronger, more independent, more resilient, more sustainable, because the way we're going to do that is in combination with the Pathways project, which will be the largest carbon capture project in the world. It'll mean that Alberta barrels of bitumen are amongst the lowest energy intensive in the world, therefore competitive not just for tomorrow, but for decades.
But the agreement stipulates that no pipeline can go forward without the Pathways Alliance carbon capture project. The Pathways project is a proposed $16.5 billion carbon capture and storage network planned for northern Alberta. Smith and Carney also agreed to terms that commit Ottawa to adjusting the West Coast tanker ban if a pipeline project is approved as a project of national interest. Following the signing, Premier Smith spoke to reporters, calling this a great day for Albertans.
This agreement means the end of the punitive oil and gas emissions cap so that our great energy producers can grow and thrive again. This agreement means the immediate suspension of the federal net zero power regulations in Alberta, which had placed our electrical grid at a very serious risk of failure and limited any hope of substantial investment in AI data centers and applications development. This agreement includes a clear path to the construction of an over 1 million barrel per day Indigenous co-owned bitumen pipeline to Asian markets so that our province and our country are no longer dependent on just one customer to buy our most valuable resource. This agreement also allows for needed adjustments to the tanker ban when the new pipeline to Asia is approved by the Major Projects Office, as well as amendments that will ensure our companies are able to advertise their environmental leadership and efforts throughout the world without a fear of penalty. We will trust, but we will verify. We will make sure that he lives up to the commitments in this agreement that we had. And we have to proceed somewhere with a measure of good faith. I can tell you 100% that the former Prime Minister would never have moved this far on these issues. We tried for 3 years. We got nowhere. And in my very first meeting with the Prime Minister, I said to him, you know, the way that we can get to an agreement is just orienting around a 2050 target. Our industry is there. We think it's achievable with technology. And you'll see in the context of this MOU that the interim targets are gone. And so that's what we're going to move forward on, and we'll see as we meet these milestones whether I'm correct or whether your skepticism is correct.
In the deal, Alberta is promising to collaborate with BC to ensure British Columbians share substantial economic and financial benefits of the proposed pipeline. Richard Masson is an executive fellow with the University of Calgary School of Public Policy. He has more than 30 years of leadership experience in energy project development and governments. He was at today's announcement in Calgary and admits that while news of a pipeline is exciting, it's a huge mountain to climb.
And it takes hundreds of millions of dollars and years of work, engineering, route planning, consultation, and particularly strong leaders consulting with Indigenous groups to have a shot at actually getting to a regulatory approval. There's no fast tracking this. If you try to fast track it, Indigenous leaders will just take it to court and they will win because that's been established. You've got to do proper consultation and accommodation. And so, yes, it's a huge hill to climb, but it is at least something now people can start down that road because it says at the end, if you get there, we will look at removing the tanker ban for that pipeline.
And not long after that MOU was announced, Culture Minister and former Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault resigned from cabinet. He had been a thorn in the side of Alberta's energy industry for the past 6 years and was adamantly anti-pipeline. Sources say he will remain in the House of Commons as an MP. In other energy-related news today, Ontario has signed a deal with a Northern First Nation to fast-track construction on the road to the mineral-rich Ring of Fire. Martin Falls First Nation will get nearly $40 million for a multi-purpose community centre, materials for other infrastructure projects and other priority projects. In return, the community will complete its environmental assessment on the Martin Falls Access Road by February. The chief of the Martin Falls First Nation says the deal represents economic reconciliation. The goal is to begin construction on the road by August. The Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce and business owners across region gathered at the Sandman Signature Lodge Thursday to discuss how government policy and national developments are impacting their businesses. As BCN's Landon Hickok reports, local business leaders are trying to plan for the future in an ever-changing marketplace.
The Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce says the way business is conducted in our nation has changed. They say since the COVID-19 pandemic, federal policy changes, and the glaring uncertainty of tariffs from U.S. President Donald Trump, employers have had to find new ways to become more creative, working more with less, and fine-tuning their respective business plans and processes than ever before.
We've had to overcome fear more this year than I think previously, than even through COVID, because just when you are uncertain about one thing, it could be uncertain again. So it's just been that daily of, okay, 8 a.m., this is what's going on, 1 p.m., okay. No, it's changed a bit, but you have to be flexible in business.
Panel members in the event expressed their outlook on the current state of productivity and business investments throughout the country and came to the general consensus that there must be a new type of boldness to advocate for real policy that would bring in significant investments all the way to the national level.
So really encouraging people to take the opportunity to use their local networks, their provincial networks, and even their national networks, and have those discussions and say, here are the issues that we see that are preventing us from being everything we can be as a company, and bring those forward and have those discussions. And I think we're starting to see that to an increasing degree, and the result is we're seeing a government, a federal government, that is now much more open to business opportunities and attracting investment and getting projects underway.
You know, people are looking for policy reform right now to make it easier to do business, to encourage business to be able to grow, to facilitate tech and innovation. And so the one thing that I always am looking for, and I know women are looking for, especially those who are running businesses, is how does policy and how does government, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, help me enable my business, enable growth, and the opportunities for hiring and product development and all that good stuff.
The event capped off with discussion on national and international implications that affect Lethbridge. But ultimately, the Chamber of Commerce is confident that taking the initiative to collaborate on all levels of business and policy is the path to success.
Lethbridge needs to keep working together. We need to collaborate. We need to reach out to our politicians. We need to reach out to the Lethbridge Polytechnic, to the university, to the Chamber of Commerce, or whatever association that you belong to, and say, what can I do? What can I do to help continue to strengthen the voice of Lethbridge and region?
For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
The Canadian Automobile Dealers Association is calling for a full reset on Ottawa's electric vehicle transition. The association says the current pace of the transition is not in line with consumer demand or Canada's logistical challenges. Ottawa had initially promised to help with affordability with $2 billion in what was called the Incentive for Zero Emission Vehicle Fund, or EZEV. But Association President Tim Royce says that's all changed.
That support was initially paused and has now been officially canceled. The mandated targets were improbable to begin with due to weak consumer demand, technology limitations across vehicle segments and use cases, as well as infrastructure shortfalls. Removing the purchase incentive moved those targets from improbable to impossible. The Prime Minister and Cabinet's decision to pause the 2026 mandates was a very good first step. We appreciate the many opposition and government MPs who have raised this issue as a concern for consumers and for the country. Now is the time to take the next step and remove these unnecessary mandates altogether.
Auto dealers are demanding that Ottawa suspend EV mandates until future of the auto industry is clearer and new trade deals are signed with the U.S. and Mexico. The association also says new targets must align with consumer preferences and the actual availability of charging options. Authorities in Washington, D.C. are still working to determine the motive for Wednesday's brazen daytime shooting of 2 U.S. National Guard soldiers not far from the White House. We get more in this report from Elaine Carroll with the Associated Press.
Officials have released the names of the suspect, who is in custody, and the Guard members who were shot, but the motive for the attack is not yet clear.
He has been identified as Ramanullah Lakhanwal, a 29-year-old Afghan who entered the United States under Biden's Operation Allies Welcome, a program following the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. He resided in Bellingham, Washington, with his wife and, we believe, 5 children. What we know about him is that he drove his vehicle across country from the state of Washington with the intended target of coming to our nation's capital.
We're here to brief you on the tragic events.
FBI Director Kash Patel said the shooting is being investigated as an act of terrorism. Agents have served a series of search warrants, with Patel calling it a, quote, coast-to-coast investigation. Prior to his 2021 arrival in the United States, the suspect worked with the US government, including the CIA, the spy agency's director said in a statement. The National Guard members, who have been identified as Specialist Sarah Beckstrom, 20, and Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolfe, 24, were hospitalised in critical condition. The incident comes as the presence of troops in the nation's capital and other cities around the country has been a flashpoint issue for months.
And in other news, one of the deadliest blazes in Hong Kong's modern history has killed at least 83 people and injured more than 70 others. Firefighters are battling the fire that's still ravaging the buildings at a high-rise apartment complex for the second day. Residents who escaped the buildings are sharing their stories.
有冇諗過話出嚟逃生？點解會揀繼續留喺屋企？有㗎，佢有試過一開始嘅時候，我叫佢走，咁佢走咗出去，但係因為樓梯都係曬濃煙啊，咁佢都走唔到啦，已經黑掹掹睇唔到，所以焗住又要匿翻入個單位裏邊啦。
我唔喺現場，我係收到屋企人通知我先至翻嚟睇，跟住我聽翻啲居民講佢就其實冇響過阿蘭。
It's unclear exactly how many people are missing or trapped, but rescuers holding flashlights are going from apartment to apartment at the charred towers. Global Affairs Canada estimates there are about 300,000 Canadian citizens in Hong Kong, but the department has not replied to a request about whether any Canadians have died in the fire. Some university students in Quebec are speaking out about the province's plan to ban prayer rooms at post-secondary schools. Students at Concordia University in Montreal says the ban unfairly targets the Muslim community.
Well, the idea of that having a place for, for connecting spiritually that is open for everyone, for all cultures and for all religions, is to have that place where you can step back from your studies have a place where you can get back to, to your sources, as we say. You got 5,000 students, Muslim students here on campus. And that, if we add even more for Christians people, for Shia people, for Jewish people that come and also use that place for their own faith. So the question needs to be asked, and there's no answer to it. What happens to that 5,000 people if they all go pray on random corners? As a Muslim Quebecer, we've always learned since we grew up here that we're all about a place about unity and connecting with the stuff that gets us together. Whereas it be Poutine, whereas it be the Canadiens of Montreal, we all hope that this year they might win, so we cross our fingers on that. But yeah, it's all about unity and the acceptance of the other. I didn't grow up in a Quebec where we put the finger on people that says this or that say that.
The Quebec bill goes well beyond university prayer rooms, though. The government is also planning to repeal the Freedom of Worship Act, which set out to preserve the free exercise and enjoyment of religious profession and worship without discrimination or preference. In October, the government adopted a law banning religious symbols worn by any school employee who interacts with a student. What is the most important factor for brain health in seniors? Well, this was the topic at SACPA, or the Southern Alberta Council on Public Affairs, session Thursday. Dr. Robin Gibb, professor and chair of the Department of Neuroscience at the University of Lethbridge, explains how social connection, play, and lifestyle habits protect brain health and promote wellness in older adults.
The most important factor for cognitive health in seniors is staying connected. So making sure you keep your friends and your families close and making sure that you're constantly seeking contact, making new friends. When you're in the presence of somebody who you really enjoy, your brain and your body are able to secrete a protein called oxytocin. And when it is released, it lowers your stress levels and it increases your brain's plasticity. So its ability to learn new things. We know that it's important to eat well and getting enough sleep is also important. The brain takes out the garbage at night by flushes cerebrospinal fluid through the brain, and it takes out all the metabolic byproducts while you're sleeping. Having a positive attitude about life. When you smile, by the way, it actually reduces your stress levels. Also, for older adults, the feeling of contribution. If you're volunteering and doing something, it can give you a strong sense of satisfaction, and that also improves your brain health and your cognitive abilities.
Gibbs' research explores how early life experiences such as gentle touch and play help the brain grow and adapt throughout life. Kindergarten to grade 3 students at St. Patrick's Fine Arts were also learning about health and wellness today at a fair organized by nursing students from the University of Lethbridge. The young kids were receiving training on topics like sleep, hand washing, communication, brain anatomy, bullying, and oral health. The university says this event highlights its strong partnership with elementary education.
We want to focus on different health topics that can be utilized from now till they're leaving out of the school. For instance, like learning about your brain and how healthy your brain can be. Lots of healthy foods, that's kind of been a big topic. But also we're talking about their mental health and their that worrying, calming anxiety that all comes up during school, recess, everything, but then hitting towards our bullying as well. So we're looking to focus kind of from spectrum hitting kindergarten all the way up to grade 6. Honestly been interested in everything that we've done. We focused on sleep right at the beginning, which was really neat because they got to talk about their dreams.
I learned that different taste buds are in different places. I thought they were just all random all over. I really like the worry one. That worry will go away. Slam my head into something and then forget everything.
I think sometimes we take for granted that we're going to be thoughtful about how we brush our teeth. We're going to be thoughtful about how we go to sleep at night, right? But as the kids get older, the more they know themselves and they can take some ownership about their own wellness habits, it's win-win for everybody. So when we partner with community, either through agencies or through Alberta Health or through the university, it's always better. Right? We're bringing more people together to the table.
According to UNICEF, Canada ranks 19th out of 36 wealthy countries in overall child and youth well-being. Hey, check out this video. At around 12:20 p.m. today, a train derailed just outside of Champion, Alberta, tipping at least 20 rail cars onto their sides and off the track. Thankfully, none of them spilled out onto the highway. One of our viewers happened to be driving southbound down Highway 23 on the east side of the train, which appeared to be traveling north. And then the driver saw this happen right beside them and quickly captured this video before sending it our way. The RCMP did confirm that the derailment happened along Highway 23 just south of Highway 529. The derailed cars were apparently carrying grain and some type of vegetable oil. No injuries have been reported. And by the way, Champion is just 50 minutes northwest of Lethbridge. The Vancouver Fireworks Festival Society says financial difficulties have led to it pulling the plug on the Honda Celebration of Light after more than 3 decades. It says it can no longer keep the iconic waterfront festival afloat, noting it had been reaching out to government and business communities for months. The festival has seen federal funding eliminated and a drastic reduction in both provincial funding and private sector investment, as well as rising production costs over the last 3 years. Organizers have described the event, previously known as the Symphony of Fire, as Canada's largest free event and a major driver of BC tourism for 33 years. That's too bad. Well, a new report shows more Canadians missed a non-mortgage debt payment in the third quarter compared with a year ago. Equifax Canada says the 90-day non-mortgage balance delinquency rate hit 1.63%. That is up 14% compared with last year. Equifax Canada notes how credit card spending typically rises during the holiday season and that the next few weeks will be a decisive moment for many shoppers in Canada. Now here's a look at today's markets.
Happy Thanksgiving to our American viewers. Due to Thanksgiving, some market numbers have not changed. The TSX changed, however, with it being up 16 to 31,196. The Dow, S&P 500, and NASDAQ were unchanged, with the Dow sitting at 47,427, the S&P 500 sits at 6,812, and the NASDAQ sits at 23,214. West Texas Intermediate oil was up 44 cents to 59.09 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 7 cents to 463 US. Gold was down 3.29 to 41,059.38 US an ounce, and silver was up 7 cents to 53.42 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $7.53 per bushel. Barley is at $5.88. Canola is at $14.76, and corn is at $7.44 per bushel. Livestock numbers were unchanged due to Thanksgiving, with live cattle sitting at $211.02 for the December contract. Feeder cattle are sitting at $315.12 for the January contract, and lean hogs December contract sits at $80.42. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours and currently sits at 71.30 cents US.
Recapping one of our top stories, Premier Danielle Smith and Prime Minister Mark Carney signed a memorandum of understanding in Calgary that Alberta says will more than double oil exports to Asian markets, address investment uncertainty, and reduce emissions. It came with some give and take conditions from both sides. Ottawa agreed to lift the contentious tanker ban, and Alberta will ensure the Pathways Alliance carbon capture project goes ahead. In the recent past, BC Premier David Eby said that Smith's plan for a pipeline project was only a pipe dream. I guess now he's living in a nightmare. Coming up next, news editor of the Western Standard, David Naylor, gives us the details on this new agreement and his thoughts on the recall petition that are targeting 14 UCP MLAs. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or our YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews.